What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I am back with a video. This time once again, we're looking at Nikola Jokic, as well as Fox Sports analyst Nick Wright. And as you guys know, Nick isn't a big fan of the Joker in his overall MVP case. And after Denver's playoff success, or lack thereof, Nick Wright predictably piled on Jokic even more. So with that being said, let's roll our first clip and expose Nick Wright's arguments.
Nick, how should the reigning MVP feel after this loss?
Listen, finally he really showed up, and, until the two biggest possessions of the game where he blew it defensively and blew it offensively, he played really well. He can hold his head high. Listen, I'm done killing Joker. I said that history is going to judge me fairly and right on this, and history is going to come very quickly.
So, stopping the clip right there, Nick Wright says history is going to come very fast and vindicate him on Jokic not being the MVP. Now, I find that pretty funny, considering the MVP is a regular season award. The playoffs have no impact and no bearing on who they vote for to win the MVP. And even with that being said, if you didn't vote for Jokic, you still have to acknowledge he had an all-time great dominant season for his center, averaging 27, 14, and 8 on 58% shooting. And say he does win MVP. For a center MVP winner, he'll have the highest scoring average since Shaq in 2000. And when it comes to assists, he'll have the second highest ever for a center MVP winner. Even going further than that, looking at every MVP winner ever, he'll have the fourth highest field goal percentage in NBA history. So if Jokic wins MVP, by no means is it a travesty or some abomination that he won it, because objectively, he has a very, very strong case, just like Giannis as well as Embiid.
When they announce he wins MVP, and his season is already over, and he might already be back in Serbia riding that chariot and not even there to collect the award, this thing's gonna flip. I'm telling you right now, there's gonna be a whole lot of people saying, well, the numbers might say people are going to quickly realize I was right about this all along.
Now, I don't want to be petty, but when it comes to MVP winner being revealed, that's after everyone's season ends after the NBA Finals. But even with that out of the way, looking at past MVP winners who have had playoff flameouts, there's definitely a couple. Giannis in 2020. Yes, he made it past the first round, but versus Miami, he was put on a lock by Bam, Jimmy, and that great defensive team. Russ in 2017, he lost in 5 to James Harden and a really good Rockets team. And of course, Dirk in 07 in the first round, after nearly winning 70 games, got beat by the Warriors in 6. You could even throw Steph Curry from 2016. Yes, he made it to the NBA Finals, but he blew a 3-1 lead in epic fashion. You could call all those MVP winners underachievers and underperformers when it came to the playoffs. And even with that being said, all those players were rightful and deserving MVP winners for their respective seasons. And I do want to make one larger point. When looking at any NBA superstar who has an undermanned roster, 99% of the time their team losing isn't due to that player. And looking at Jokic versus Golden State in this year's first round, he's averaging 29, 13, and 5 on 52, 18, and 84 splits. Definitely pretty impressive versus a very good Golden State team. And if you hold this against Jokic as being entirely his fault, go ahead, do that. You're wrong, but you're free to do that.
If they lose Game 4, he becomes the first MVP to ever be swept in the first round 4-0. He will have the longest, forget StatMuse, I didn't need this from StatMuse, I knew this already. Take that off the screen, I got more. If they lose, I got more than StatMuse has. If they lose in Game 4, it will be the longest playoff losing streak for a reigning MVP ever. And if they lose Game 4, it will be the longest losing streak in the playoffs for anyone that has ever won MVP at any point in their career.
So, stopping that clip right there, that was a really long explanation on why Jokic and his playoff success negates his MVPs being valuable or even meaningful. Now, once again, for the MVP, it has nothing to do with the playoffs, it's all regular season. And even if you want to look at the playoffs, Jokic in his career is a great and dominant individual playoff player. And even for his Denver team in 2020, they made the Western Conference Finals for the first time since Carmelo in the late 2000s. And looking more in depth at that playoff run, Jokic in both series was individually fantastic, averaging 33, 11, and 5 versus Portland, beating them in 6, and versus Phoenix he was swept, but still averaged 25, 13, and 6 on 48% shooting. And of course that Suns team, they went on to make the NBA Finals and push Milwaukee to 6 games. You could very easily say Phoenix was the second best team in the entire NBA. And unfortunately for Jokic, his overall team and supporting cast wasn't healthy in that series. Would it have changed the outcome? Probably not, but could they have gotten 1, maybe 2 games off the Suns? I definitely think so. And once again, to nail the point home, looking at team record in the playoffs, for an MVP has absolutely no impact. I want that to be crystal clear when watching this video.
So listen, he played well last night. He did what I had asked him to do, of course, until the end when Steph blew by him and then Draymond stole his cookies and the game was over and their season's over and the idea of him being a top 5 player in this league, hopefully, mercifully, is over. But I'm not going to kill him. Listen, it is what it is. He's a really, really good player that calculators have wildly overrated, and the playoffs will continue to show us that, Bruce.
Now, stopping the clip right there, I agree with Nick on one thing when it comes to advanced stats. Some of them can be skewed, and quite frankly, they aren't even useful. But when looking at Jokic, it's not just the advanced stats and the calculator numbers, just look at his traditional stats, averaging 27, 14, and 8. That on its own is amazing. The advanced stats complement that and make his MVP case. This is not 06 Nash, who averaged 15 points per game and had really good advanced numbers. This is a guy averaging 27, 14, and 8 and dominating on both ends and carrying his team to a top 6 record in his conference. And in regards to Jokic being an overrated playoff performer, that simply is not true. Looking at his entire career, he averaged 26 points per game, 11 boards, 6.3 assists on 51% shooting from the field, and nearly 40% from 3 with 84% from the line. There's absolutely zero way a player who puts up those numbers is overrated in any context.
He still was a great
You're
player.
right. There have been bigger chokes. There have been bigger choke jobs by MVPs in the first round of the playoffs or in the playoffs. But the reason my big pushback is when Bruce like it's a regular season award. But that's why we shouldn't give MVPs to
I agree with
sixes.
that.
You shouldn't give MVPs to guys you expect
I
to
agree with
lose
that.
in the first round. That is the regular season.
So, stopping the clip right there, I always love this argument. When talking about win percentage and team record, Jokic this year was barely off from Giannis as well as Embiid. And Jokic didn't have Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. and was playing in the Western Conference. And both Giannis and Embiid, their teams only won 51 games compared to Jokic, who won 47. Is that a drastic gap, a major difference in an MVP debate? You be the judge. And hypothetically speaking, let's say Giannis or Embiid won MVP. From a wins total perspective, that would be the 5th lowest win total for a player since 1980 who won MVP. Regardless if any of these players win it, their wins aren't going to stack up versus other MVP winners. It was an odd year, it was crazy, and a lot of parity in both conferences. And also one major point, Nick Wright clearly says you shouldn't give MVPs to a player expected to lose in the first round. What kind of crazy criteria is that? Looking at the MVP, a regular season award, you shouldn't base your vote off what might happen in the playoffs, which once again have no bearing on the MVP award.
Does anybody actually think that if they had that this team that is going to get swept by Golden State, if they had Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., who's a big question mark, that they're title favorites? Because that's the implication. You are not Jamal
favorites.
Murray away
That's fair.
from being this bad. You're simply not. But the implication all year long has been, oh, he would be having the 60-some wins and be the title favorites, Brew.
Stop. hypothetical arguments off the charts with this take. I've seen absolutely nobody say Denver would have won 60 games with Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. The argument I've seen is that Denver healthy would have been a top 4, even top 3 seed, and definitely higher than number 6 with Jokic by himself. And looking at the Golden State series, Jokic is averaging 29 points per game. His supporting cast: Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, and Monte Morris. No hate to those guys, but for a supporting cast that's definitely weak and not on par with Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, Kuminga, Otto Porter, I mean, to put it simply, this series is an absolute mismatch. As Golden State's team top to bottom, they're first in defensive rating, second in rebounds, third in opponents' points per game, fourth in steals, and fifth in opponents' points in the paint. Jokic could average 35, 17, and 10, and still that wouldn't be enough, because Golden State is flat out the better team. But once again, looking at Jokic objectively, in this series, he's done all he could to make Denver even competitive with the Warriors. Now, to end this video, I'll say one last thing. When Denver loses this series, I hope a lot of you guys don't revise history and say Jokic, he shouldn't have won the MVP where he wasn't deserving. Maybe you think he was in the beginning, maybe you think he wasn't. But the playoffs, once again, should have no impact on your MVP thoughts that happened before they started. That's my overall point and my defense of Nikola Jokic. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.